is really principally on the Foreign Marriage Act. And my lord, the concern was that while we keep talking about the Special Marriage Act, the Foreign Marriage Act is not missed out. The petitioners, this is secular act, the petitioners are validly married. So in their case, I feel that the wrong which is being done to them would be more stark and more glaring than the wrong that will come in case of, and I don't want to say that the Special Marriage Act doesn't need a declaration. I'm saying that I need it and I have a right to it in terms of being a citizen of India and a citizen of India married abroad who has rights within India. But when I come to India, I become nothing. I become a stranger. Now, one of the arguments, my lord, that I was, the respondents had said, which I found was not apposite, was the argument Mr. Vishwanathan was speaking about the social ethos and about Sri Lanka and Nepal. My lord, the fact is, India's social ethos is far more developed or as developed as those countries. We are in the same subcontinent. So our social ethos is the same. So the argument that we can't be, because of our tradition and our social ethos, we can't be looking at a declaration and at a right to marriage for same-sex couples seems to me not apposite. Second aspect which I thought was that, my lord, ultimately, the Constitution, where did we get our Constitution from? It has taken the best from various constitutions around the world. Now, if it was good enough to take from them, then if we see what other countries are doing with constitutions from which we have borrowed, then surely we can't say now we have to hark back to some tradition which is different from our constitution. So, my lord, this is one aspect. Then the third aspect on this is on, my lord, my note is, rejoinder note is volume 18. But the third aspect is that citizenship, international law, and Committee of Nations are covered under 17.3 of the Foreign Marriage Act. So Committee of Nations takes into account, and I had made that submission earlier, Constitutional Committee also. The time is not just to look at statutory committee, we have to look at Constitutional Committee. Constitutional Committee, as I said, 34 countries and the Yogyakarta principles all come into play. So we are asking for Constitutional Committee. Lord, the next point which I wanted to emphasize was this issue of social morality, which the respondents have talked about. Social morality is to whom and is for whom? The social morality, Navtej has already looked at it and has discussed social morality. Now, constitutional morality is a much higher principle, and social morality to that extent will have to come and in understanding with constitutional morality, which is at a much higher pedestal. Now, my lord, Dr. Ambedkar talks about it in the Constituent Assembly debates. Then the discussion was made in Keshwanand Bharti, and Grote had discussed it when the Greek historian Grote is discussed when it is said that constitutional morality as a living concept. Your lordships have discussed it in Navtej. So my submission to the court is that constitutional morality has to be given precedence. The concept of a vague, ephemeral societal morality, which is not recognizing or which is not at par with constitutional morality, my lord, my submission is that that would be misplaced.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yes, sorry, my lord.
Is that it, Miss?
Lord, just another 2 minutes, because the reading in part in terms of Gita Hariharan, as well as 3 other judgments. I had read Harsova to your lordships, which is, and Vijay Manohar versus Saudi, 1987, 2 SCC 278. And my lord, Harsova, as well as Gita Hariharan. These 3 judgments I had given your lordships, and reading in has, in terms of the South African judgment also, my lord, if your lordships would recall, there were 4 countries where this the reading in principle with regard to same-sex marriage has been adopted. And I'm only requesting that there is no reason when in India we are at par with those countries, our constitutional rights are at par with them, then why we should not do that. 8 countries, there was the courts actually were the precursor. They asked Parliament to lay down the law. 4 countries, the striking down was done them itself. And the South African judgments, there were 2 judgments. One of them I had cited. The reading in has to be done. Lord, the moment that we say that there is a constitutional right to marry, the moment that we say that right to marry includes a right to have a family, and the moment that we say that sexual orientation cannot be a ground of discrimination, then Article 14, 15, 19, and 20